Hey everybody, how's it going? And welcome to a new series here on HNE called Annotated. So with Annotated, we'll explore the how, why, and explain behind some of the most popular, current, and upcoming film and television franchises. So with this installment of Annotated, we'll be focusing on Marvel, both the Marvel Cinematic Universe and also other aspects of Marvel, like Marvel TV, Sony's Marvel Universe as well, and talking about all those things, and a lot of it might be speculative at times, but the most important part is that we're kind of going into things, exploring concepts, and hopefully exploring new things together. But definitely let us know any ideas for future episodes for Marvel Annotated you'd like to see us do. And with all that said and done, let's get into it. During Disney's Quarter 2 2020 investor call, reports during that time were published online that several upcoming MCU additions will be introduced more so on Disney Plus than in theaters. And out of the numerous names listed in reports, one of the more interesting and surprising ones was Ironheart. Now, a relatively new character in comics, Ironheart was introduced to readers in 2016 by Brian Michael Bendis, which I gotta add, he's gonna make a ton of bank on how many adaptations and storylines he wrote. Seem to be becoming MCU storylines and characters that are going to the MCU, so, bravo Bendis. But going back to the video, the character of Riri Williams was a super genius from Chicago before going to MIT while as a young teenager. And she was 15 during this time, and during her studies, she decides to create her own version of the Iron Man armor. And from there, she becomes a superhero, going eventually by the name of Ironheart, after Tony Stark entered a coma during the Civil War II storyline. And in this installment of Marvel Annotated, we're going to explore Ironheart's potential introduction to the MCU. In the first half of Captain America Civil War, Tony Stark gave a presentation and lecture to students at MIT. And during this presentation, the BARF technology was showcased as they kind of did a flashback to in Spider-Man Far From Home. And after that, Tony Stark promised to fund an invention by every student. And audiences likely thought they'd never see that referenced again. But just like with Spider-Man Far From Home and Quinn and Beck connecting to the BARF technology, Marvel may pull from this again. And this scene provides a perfect foundation for the character of Riri Williams, as it's chronologically set in 2016, but the current Marvel timeline sits at 2024. So this 8-year window provides a very interesting opportunity to introduce and have a character like Riri Williams grow up, not only with that being implemented with MIT's program, but also growing up in a society that has almost always known the Avengers, more or less as long as they can remember. And at the same time, they would also remember being absent of the Avengers and then being inspired by the return of the Avengers, especially Iron Man's sacrifice. So she'd be a very unique character shaped by living in that society of not only adjusting to and accepting things like superheroes and aliens, but also seeing the sacrifices of characters like Iron Man during the events of Avengers Endgame. And this was actually something further on hinted a little bit during Spider-Man Far From Home, when they're on that airplane trip and you see the documentaries and basically all the specials dedicated to superheroes like the Avengers and Iron Man. So with this unique perspective, I think it makes a lot of sense that she'd be inspired by the death of Iron Man and the heroics of the Avengers to become a superhero as well. And if we want to look back at the MCU, they like kind of doing amalgamations of different characters when possible. And this actually provides another opportunity for the MCU because they can merge aspects of Riri Williams with another character that's relatively similar in some ways, known as Lila Rhodes, aka the super genius niece of James Rhodes, who is War Machine. And introduced before Riri Williams, Lila was gifted in mechanical engineering and computer science, along with receiving personal training from Tony Stark on programming. So merging these two characters would, for some people, maybe be an ideal way to do it, because you could have it immediately connect to characters like War Machine, who would likely be the only character people would not feel comfortable with, but you could argue would properly be able to give a blessing to be the next Iron Man, so to speak, or even pass on armor technology outside of someone like Pepper Potts. However, I don't think she'll really be viewed as the next Iron Man because that unofficial role is more or less taken by Peter Parker in the MCU, but Riri Williams will most likely be a member of the upcoming Young Avengers project that Marvel Studios is doing. And as well, she can also kind of be her own character, not connected to people like War Machine, like I mentioned before, similar to how Kamala Khan will be connected to Captain Marvel but not through relation, instead through inspiration. And that can actually make a really interesting kind of generation of heroes coming up, like Miss Marvel, Kamala Khan, and I guess Riri Williams as Ironheart, because you can show that kind of progression of not having to be connected to a pre-established hero, but still being able to be an inspired hero in your own right, which is in a way something similar that they did with Spider-Man being inspired by Iron Man, but obviously they kind of jumbled that up. But creating an amalgamation of champions and Young Avengers seems the likely route they're going to go, and I really do hope they do this because her armor in Champions is a hell of a lot better than the Iron Man looking armor she had before. So definitely it'd be really great to see that. But I guess kind of overall, Riri Williams will be a really interesting character for the MCU due to her lack of deep character history. So this will provide the MCU a lot of flexibility in regards to changing things in her backstory, her supporting cast, her antagonists even. And at the same time, the signals an interesting push towards diversity, which Marvel's teased at, but they're doing a lot more showing than telling now with projects like Ironheart, as Miss Marvel, Wiccan, Miss America, Kate Bishop will all represent LGBT, Muslim, Latinx, and women communities in their own right. All in all, I think it'll be really cool to see how they do Ironheart. How do you guys hope to see Ironheart adapted in the MCU, since it looks like she's coming? And if you guys aren't a big fan of the character, just give her solo series a chance. It's much better than the Bendis introduction stuff with her. But leave a comment down below. What do you guys think about Ironheart entering the MCU? And we'll see you guys later.